Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku, back with another fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Never Let You Go? Now before starting, please give this video a like. And subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. You were sitting in your room when you heard a voice that sounded somewhat familiar. Good evening, ma'am. I would like to adopt a child, please. Why does that sound like All Might? You got off your bed and crept over to your door, pressing your ear against it to hear better. And what age and gender would you like to adopt? The service lady asked. A female, 16 years old, he replied. Well, you're in luck. We only have one female child that's 16, said the lady. Your eyes widened, and you backed away from the door. You couldn't believe it, you were being adopted. You had been stuck in this forsaken orphanage for years. Your heart started beating faster, and your mind raced with thoughts, but the one that stood out the most was, who were you getting adopted by? You quickly dismissed the possibility that it could be All Might. Why would All Might need a child? This way, sir. You could hear faint footsteps coming directly toward your room. Your eyes widened, and your heart raced dramatically. What should you do? You glanced around the room, but there was nothing to occupy your hands. Suddenly, a knock made you jump. Miss YN. She paused. Could you open the door? Be right there. You jumped to your feet and ran to the mirror to make sure you looked presentable. Miss YN, are you all right? You didn't answer, instead cursing under your breath as you rushed to the door. You placed your hand on the handle and started to turn it. Why hello, Miss YN. Her smile grew. We have someone who would like to adopt you. You looked up and saw All Might standing in your doorway. I am. Your vision faded, and the last thing you saw was black. Time skip. Your eyes slowly opened, and the first thing you noticed was the very soft, silky sheets you were wrapped in. What the? You brought your hand to your head. You were burning up. As you took a moment to look around the room, you noticed how pretty it was. The walls were a nice shade of purple, and your sheets were baby blue, matching the pillows. Wow, a sudden realization hit you. Where am I? Your door opened and you screamed. Don't hurt me. I swear I didn't eat the last can of baked beans. What are you talking about, YN? You slowly opened your eyes and looked at the doorway, where a familiar face greeted you. You jumped out of bed and ran over to him. Is that really you? You poked his cheek, your eyes widening. Izuku. You tackled him in a hug and started crying. I missed you. Don't you dare leave me again. He just laughed and patted your back. You're the one who left me, but I'll let you have your moment. After your little reunion, Izuku had to go home, and All Might wouldn't be back until later. Since you were incredibly tired, you decided to take a little nap. You hugged your blanket tighter as your thoughts wandered. What if someone found out about your true ability? Why did All Might adopt you? Where was your real father now? Why did your mother have to die? Why wasn't it you? Would Izuku ever like you back? Wait. Confusion washed over your face, and you stared at your wall for a few minutes. A knock at your door broke you out of your trance. Come in, you said. The door opened slowly, and All Might entered your room. He turned on your light and then sat on your bed. You sat up and asked him what was up. You're probably wondering why I adopted you, he said. Why, yeah, I was kind of confused about that, you replied. I suppose I owe you an explanation. As you may already know, your quirk is extremely powerful, he said. You nodded occasionally as he continued to talk. And what you probably don't know is that I am your uncle. Your eyes widened and your jaw dropped. You see, your father is a very bad man. As soon as I found out where you were, I decided that I had to keep you safe. You sat there in complete silence. "W, do you know what my quirk is?" you asked. No, he replied. But that's why I enrolled you into UHI, he said, if that's all right with you, of course. You nodded vigorously. You had always wanted to go there. Midoriya also attends UA, so you two will have more time to catch up. Your face lit up, and you started bouncing with excitement. Anyway, your first day starts tomorrow. Your uniform is in your closet. You nodded as All Might left your room to let you get some sleep. You squealed and buried your face in your pillow. I can't believe it. you whispered to yourself. You were about to drift off when a gentle knock jolted you awake. Come in. The doorknob started jiggling vigorously, and you heard some silent cursing from the other side. You twist it. You heard a faint curse, and the door opened to reveal a small Izuku. You started giggling, which turned into full-blown laughter. Izuku gave you an unamused expression before joining in with the laughter. Shush, you do. You have school tomorrow. All Might shouted from the other room. Sure thing, banana hair, you shouted before turning your attention back to Izuku. So, Izuku, what brings you here this fine evening? I was just going to see if you were hyped about school tomorrow. Of course I am, my little broccoli. Why wouldn't I be? Suddenly, you realized what you had just called him. Your eyes widened, and you blushed deeply. He chuckled and started walking out the door. Wait. Izuku turned back, and your heart raced. Your expression turned into a frown. Let's do our best tomorrow. You looked up at him and threw your fist in the air to show your enthusiasm. He just smiles again and closes the door. Your eyes fill with tears as you silently curse to yourself. Why didn't you tell him, you silly human? The tears escape your eyes and flow down your cheeks as you lay back down. Izuku's POV. Darn it, Izuku, that was the perfect chance. I put my head in my hands and decided I would tell her tomorrow. I made my way home and went to sleep, hoping that tomorrow would go as planned. Your cheeks were still wet from the tears, and so was your pillow, annoyingly, so you just decided to turn it over and hope it would be dry in the morning. You were still pretty upset that you didn't tell Izuku, but you didn't think it was the right time. After all, you had just seen him again after so many years. You kind of lost count after a while. But what mattered most was that you had been reunited with the one and only Izuku Midoriya. Just the thought of being back with him brought a smile to your face. Whenever you're near him, you feel as if nothing could ever harm you. You were safe from everything, and absolutely nothing was impossible. You were now in a good mood again and ended up drifting into sweet slumber. However, your sleep was soon interrupted by a little tapping sound. Your eyes opened slightly, and you sat up, trying to locate that annoying noise that dared to disturb your peaceful sleep. Your body was somehow laying horizontally across your bed, one leg stretched off to the side, and your face covered by your arm. A little puddle of drool was forming on your bed, but that was beside the point. Your eyes finally landed on what was causing the noise. It was Izuku. Tapping on your window? What on earth was he doing tapping on your window at 3:15 in the morning? What if it was an emergency? Was he in trouble? You quickly slid off the bed and fell onto the floor with a thud, but you got up and unlocked the window anyway. What on earth are you doing? You stopped short when you saw his face was red, his eyes puffy, his hair an absolute mess, and his clothes torn. You pulled him into your room, turned on the light, and sat him down on your bed. What happened to you? Are you all right? Did someone do this to you? Where did they go? I'm ready to run at them with my body covered in custard and a horse head on, wielding a samurai sword. Before you could say anything else, Izuku interrupted you by pulling you into a tight hug. You hugged back, albeit with a slight delay due to the shock and confusion. You heard a sniffle and a slight giggle coming from the green boy. After a few minutes, he let you go and looked you in the eyes with a slight smile. You always did know how to make me feel better, Wyan. I guess you still have that charm. He giggled again, this time with a bigger smile. I'm actually not sure what happened. I think I was having a nightmare, and I didn't realize I had woken up. I thought I was still being chased by it and I ended up here. He looked like he was trying to figure out if anything he had just said made any sense. Just then his phone started to ring, and his mom's number popped up on the screen, along with a picture of her and little Izuku dancing together. He handed you the phone, and you saw a pleading look on his face. You took the phone from his hands and pressed the green button. Where are you? Why you not here? I swear my heart can't handle this. Inko? This is YN. You may not remember me, but Izuku is here with me right now. He had a terrible nightmare and didn't want to wake you. He didn't know what else to do, so he came to me. There was a moment of silence before you heard another sniff. You looked at the green-haired boy, but he was lost in his own world. Then you realized the sound was coming from the phone. You were about to say something until Inko beat you to it. Why in, darling? Why you're safe? You're here, you're back? Yeah, I'm back. All Might adopted me from an orphanage that's about a 4-hour drive from here. I don't remember much about you, but I can assure you that Izuku is safe here with me, and everything will be fine. I was wondering if it would be possible for him to stay here for the night. You heard a gentle gasp from Izuku as his head turned to face you, his eyes wide and his cheeks flushed a deep shade of red. Why, darling, you sound so grown up, and Weiss, of course, he can stay as long as he wants to. I know you will be able to keep him safe. I must head off to bed now, my little old heart has had enough for the night. Tell Izuku I love him and have a good night. I definitely will. Good night, Inko, sleep well. And with that, the phone call ended. You turned towards Izuku to find him hiding his face. You tilted your head in confusion and asked if he was all right. He replied with a simple, I'm fine, but instead of those 2 words being pronounced clearly, they came out in a jumbled mess of language. You giggled and got up to turn off the light, leaving the lamp on because you weren't really fond of the dark. You then proceeded to get a pillow and pull a blanket out of a little cupboard against your wall. What are you doing, YN? Going to bed. What does it look like I'm doing? You replied. Izuku shook his head, then picked you up in a bridal style and gently lowered you onto the mattress. He was so close, and your heart raced as you realized how intimate the moment felt. He lay on the floor and slowly closed his eyes. Oh no, you whispered to yourself. You used your hands to hoist yourself off the bed and went to pick up the sleeping figure. He was surprisingly light for his muscular build, and you decided not to dwell on that thought for fear of dropping him. Izuku's eyes met yours as you approached the bed. His face was flushed, and it was amusing how easily you could make him blush. When you laid him down, he grabbed your wrist before you could step away. He gently pulled you down beside him, and before either of you could process what had just happened, he slid his arm around your waist and drew you closer. Now we both win, he whispered softly in your ear. Your face felt hotter than ever, and it was hard to focus on just one thought. After a few moments, he lifted his arm and jumped off the bed, standing against the wall with heavy breaths. His face mirrored your own, both of you blushing fiercely. He clutched his shirt tightly, looking at you with wide eyes. I am so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I just thought. He faltered, bowing his head as his hands fell to his sides. He looked ashamed, and before you knew it, he dashed out of your room and ran home. Come back, you whispered as tears began to form in your eyes. Your hands clenched the sheets you were sitting on, and a tear slid down your face. Your heart raced, making it difficult to settle down that night, especially with school in the morning. Time passed, and your alarm blared, making you contemplate throwing it out the window. Instead, you gently pressed the dismiss button. As you opened your eyes, memories of the previous night flooded your mind, tightening your chest as you fought back tears. Suddenly, your door flew off its hinges and crashed into your dresser. You sat up straight, wide-eyed and startled, but relaxed when you saw All Might standing in the doorway behind what was left of it. He somehow managed to squeeze through and approached the end of the bed with his hands on his hips. Good morning, young YN, he exclaimed. You stared at him, annoyance etched on your face. I get it. I'll get you a new door, he said, face-palming. Sorry about that. I'm just really excited that today is your first day at you. He pumped his fist in the air, accidentally putting a hole in the ceiling instead. You couldn't help but laugh. His expression shifted between annoyance and amusement, but he continued to smile like a goof, standing there with his fists stuck in the roof. After a moment of laughter, he transformed into his smaller form, looking at you with an unreadable expression. Soon, he joined in your laughter and told you to hurry up and get ready as he exited your room. You slowly rose from bed and walked over to your dresser. One of the drawers was partially open, so you figured your uniform was inside. You opened the drawer and found it, unfolding it and holding it up. The skirt was a bit shorter than you preferred, but it was an amazing school and everyone was expected to behave well. You looked in the bathroom mirror at your freshly washed hair and decided to leave it down. The uniform actually looked pretty cute on you. You began to wonder if Izuku would think you looked cute. Bad idea, brain. Stop thinking about him. Stop thinking about who? A deep voice questioned. You jumped, falling backward into the shower curtain. Looking up, you saw Tiny Mite standing in your doorway, trying to stifle a laugh while you sat awkwardly in the tub, tangled in the curtain with an annoyed expression, a piece of hair covering your slightly flushed face. Are you all right, young YN? He asked, barely containing his laughter. I'm fine, you replied, sounding more annoyed than you intended. Tiny Mite walked over and offered his hand, which you accepted, standing up again, though your hair was a mess once more. After brushing your hair, you met Tiny Mite in the car, and you both headed off to school. As you got closer, your heart rate increased, and you began to feel a bit panicked. Tiny Mite noticed and placed a reassuring hand on your shoulder, flashing you a warm smile. There's no need to be scared, young one. Besides, you have Midoriya to keep you company. Yeah, I guess so, you smiled back at him. Before you knew it, you were standing at the school gates with All Might. Obviously, he had to go do teacher stuff, and you were left standing there by yourself. You were about to run home when you spotted the familiar green hair you loved. Acting on instinct, you started to sprint towards him and wrapped him in the tightest hug possible. You heard a slight gasp from Izuku, and instead of hitting the ground, you felt a hand on your back, and suddenly, you were floating in the air for a few seconds until Izuku's feet were safely planted on the ground, your arms still around him. I hope you don't mind that I did that, a girl with short brown hair and rosy cheeks said. It was snowing outside, and you sat near the window, watching the white flakes fall gracefully to the ground until you were interrupted by a knock at the door. Deku? You exclaimed in surprise. You stared at Izuku with wide eyes and quickly pulled him inside, some snow getting on the floor, but you didn't care. Hey, YN. Sorry for the surprise visit, but I bought you a gift and decided to give it to you now, he smiled. Tears of joy lined the corners of your eyes as you smiled widely at him and gave him a massive hug. Careful, YN, you'll break the present. And I can barely breathe, he chuckled. You let go of him and he handed you the gift. Eagerly, you unwrapped it and stared in awe. It was a purple heart-shaped pendant, the chain gold with little spots of silver dotted along it. It's beautiful, Izuku. Thank you, you nearly shouted. You put it on right away and admired the heart for a few moments. I nearly forgot. Close your eyes, YN, and don't open them until I tell you to, okay? You obeyed, and a few seconds later, you felt hands gently guiding you to a different spot in the room. What are you doing, Izuku? See, it's almost done. You stood still, wondering what Izuku was planning. Okay, you can open them, he said shyly. You opened your eyes to see Izuku standing directly opposite you, and above both your heads was a mistletoe. Your face turned the deepest shade of red imaginable, and when you looked back at Izuku, his face mirrored yours. You obviously don't have to. You cut him off by gently pressing your lips to his soft cheek. When you looked at the green-haired boy again, his eyes were wide, and he seemed frozen. Just as you were about to ask if he was all right, you felt his hand move to the back of your head, and before you knew it, he leaned in, pressing his lips against yours. You were in shock for a moment, but then you melted into the sweet kiss. Everything felt perfect, and you felt safe. The kiss lasted only a few moments before he pulled away for air. I love you, he said softly. You smiled and replied, I love you, before kissing him again. Hi, I'm Ochako Uraraka, it's nice to meet you, she said with a smile. You shifted on Izuku's back to get a better glimpse of the girl. Your quirk has something to do with manipulation of gravity, right? You peeked over Izuku's shoulder. Uraraka looked surprised for a moment before answering. Basically, yes. My quirk is zero gravity. I can make anything I choose float upon contact or simply make them weightless. You jumped off Izuku's back and shook the girl's hand, which she gladly accepted. She then moved on to shake Izuku's hand, and when they made contact, he blushed deeply and started to mumble incoherently. Izuku's POV. This is the only girl other than Y and I have ever made contact with. Why am I freaking out so much? I felt my knees go weak. I looked at the brown-haired girl, feeling my face burn. She seemed confused by my reaction. The bell rang, and Uraraka headed off to her class. I turned around to get YN, only to find that she wasn't there. Maybe she didn't want to be late, I mumbled quietly, a pang of guilt shooting through my chest. Your POV. What just happened? That was the only thought racing through your mind as you ran to find the bathroom. You needed to find it right now before you started crying in the middle of school. You reached the bathroom stall and locked yourself in, breaking into silent sobs as you sat on the cold ground. After a few minutes, you decided to wash your face and head out the door to your class. You finally arrived, only to find the door open with a strange yellow slug-like creature on the ground. Was this supposed to be your teacher? You stepped over and found a seat, the only available one next to Izuku. Great. You took your seat anyway and tried to act cool, behaving as you normally would around him. It took you too long to settle down. This simply won't cut it in the hero world, the yellow creature stated from the floor. I would love to write more, but I need to go to my mom's now. I'll probably make another chapter while I'm there. If I don't, I'll put one out tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed. Once again, this story won't be exactly like the anime, but I'll do my best to make it close enough. The man emerged from his cocoon-like resting place, looking quite tired with his hair a bit disheveled. He took a sip from a drink pouch and began to walk to the front of the class. I'm Mr. Aizawa, your homeroom teacher, he stated bluntly. Mr. Aizawa then proceeded to talk to us about considering our futures. You didn't pay close attention to every word he said, but you listened enough to grasp the main points, just in case he asked questions about what he had just discussed. Isn't this kind of pointless? I mean, we're here because we want to be heroes. Unless some people are here because they feel forced to be, or they just didn't know what else to do. You have a tendency to mumble to yourself, just like Izuku. A soft chuckle came from the person next to you, and you remembered that you were sitting beside him. He was probably thinking about all the fun he could be having with Uraraka, and you couldn't shake the feeling that he might prefer to be with her instead of you. Before you could finish that thought, you felt something slide down your face. You were crying. Why, are you okay? Izuku asked, concern evident in his voice. You quickly wiped your eyes, trying to regain your composure. I'm fine, just got something in my eye, you replied, forcing a smile to reassure him. His worried expression made you feel guilty for lying, but you wanted to show him you were all right, even though it was hard to keep another tear from escaping. Use your quirks during school hours. And you are not officially heroes yet, so you cannot and will not be using them in public like a licensed hero would. The only time you are allowed to use your quirks during school hours is if you are training or instructed to by a teacher, Mr. Aizawa stated. The bell rang and you quickly made your way to the roof of the school. Little did you know, someone was following you. Once you reached the roof, you took a seat against the wall. Curling into a ball, you let your emotions take over. Are you all right? Someone asked. You stopped crying and lifted your head to see who was standing in front of you. I hope you don't mind me being here. I saw you crying during class and decided to follow you, they said. You were surprised that someone actually cared enough to check on you. I'm all right, you smiled. He chuckled softly and sat down in front of you. You're obviously not okay, you're crying on a rooftop, he said with a teasing smirk. I just caught something in my eye, you replied. He laughed again, amusement dancing in his eyes. Oh yeah? What did you catch? Tears, you said, chuckling as you wiped your eyes with your sleeve. He started to laugh, and you joined in. He scooted closer and held out his hand, and you thought he was offering a handshake. Instead, he pulled you up and began to dance. You couldn't believe your eyes. A person you had never met was now sharing this joyful moment with you. Dancing in front of you, he made you stifle a laugh that threatened to escape. See, it works. Whenever someone is upset, just get up and start dancing with them, he said with a smile, offering his hand once more. You hesitated but eventually took it. The boy spun you around and dipped you, pulling you closer afterward. You know, I wouldn't usually do this, but you seem like a really nice person. And who would I be if I didn't try to cheer up a cute girl like you? He grinned, letting you go and spinning in a dramatic pose that made you burst into laughter. Holding your stomach, you couldn't contain yourself, and soon he joined in, pulling you into a warm hug. Now, I read somewhere that no one feels completely better until they receive a hug, he said playfully. You felt a blush creep onto your cheeks as he released you, still smiling. Better? He asked curiously. Much, you replied, beaming. He patted your back and raised a finger as if struck by a brilliant idea. I forgot to introduce myself, he exclaimed, extending his hand. You gladly accepted. The name's Kaminari, but you can call me Denki. Chapter End. Izuku POV. I was sitting in class, listening to Mr. Aizawa's lecture, when I heard YN mumbling to herself, which made me giggle. But then she stopped, and I glanced over to see her in tears. YN, are you all right? I asked. I'm fine, just got something in my eye, she replied. I knew she wasn't okay, but I decided to wait until lunch to check on her. When lunch arrived, YN quickly left the classroom, and I noticed a boy with yellow hair following her. Like hell I'm letting you follow her, I whispered to myself, trailing after them and realizing they were heading to the roof. Time skip. I dashed back down the stairs as soon as I saw him hug YN. What the heck? I muttered, growing more frustrated with each repetition. I found an empty corridor and sat in the corner, feeling overwhelmed. Your POV. I heard someone running down the stairs leading to the roof and wondered if it might be Izuku. I'm going back downstairs, I have a friend waiting for me. You coming? I asked. Nah, thanks for asking, he replied, gazing out at the view. I nodded and smiled politely before heading down to see who was on the stairs. I spotted green hair turning a corner and heading down an empty hallway, where he sat in a corner, looking upset. An idea struck me. Freeze, I whispered. Everything around us froze as I made my way over to Izuku and sat beside him. I lifted his head and saw a look of distress on his face. A wave of guilt washed over me, and I made everything unfreeze. Now, only Izuku and I could move. He looked up at me, startled. What the? Sorry, Izuku, you say quickly. It's fine. You have to remember that I get scared whenever you do that, he chuckles. You sit down next to him. So, why were you crying? You ask in a polite but firm voice. It's nothing, just overreacting about something, he replies, avoiding eye contact. You take his hand and hold it firmly in yours. Where do you want to go? You ask. He looks at you with a massive smile on his face and excitement in his eyes. But won't it drain your energy? Yes, it will quite a bit, but I'm willing to face the consequences of losing sleep. You giggle. So where do you want to go? How about space? He suggests. Close your eyes, you tell him. When his eyes are closed, you activate your quirk and change the scenery to space. You can open them now, you say. His eyes open wide, and he looks around in pure amazement before tears start to fall. Whoa. What's wrong? You gently pull his face toward yours, holding his gaze. Close your eyes, you say again. He complies and you change the surroundings once more. You don't care how much energy this takes, all you want is to see Izuku smile. Open. He looks around and sees you both as children. It's the moment when Izuku saved you from Kaken. He walks over to the little crying version of you and reaches out to pat your head, but his hand goes right through. I forgot that happens, he smiles, then makes his way back to you. Can you change the scenery back? You nod and revert it to the school corridor. Once back, you try to walk but instead collapse and black out. When you wake up, you find yourself in your bed, remembering exactly what happened. Izuku enters the room, holding 2 bowls of ice cream. All Might soon follows, asking if you're all right and advising you not to do whatever you did again. I don't expect you to tell me anytime soon, but know that I am here if you want to talk about your quirk, he says before leaving. Now, what was wrong? You ask. Izuku explains how he followed you after class and found you and Kaminari dancing and hugging on the rooftop. You listen intently, and when he finishes, you just stare at him. What? He asks, chuckling nervously. Instead of replying, you move closer and kiss his cheek. After that, you look at Izuku's face to see his reaction. You missed, he whispers. What? Before you can finish, Izuku wraps his arm around your waist and pulls you closer, kissing you on the lips. Your eyes widen at the sudden action, but you soon melt into the kiss. You pull away for air and look at the green-haired boy. His face is bright red, and you suspect yours is too. You glance at his lips, wanting to kiss him again. Target acquired, you say before bringing him in for another kiss. Your eyes shoot open, and you sit up quickly. It was a dream, you shout angrily. Before you can dive into an angry 5-year-old mode for 3 hours, there's a knock at your door. Are you okay, YN? A concerned Izuku asks. You let out a huff and furrow your brows. Izuku opens the door and takes one look at you before laughing. Angry 5-year-old, really? You cross your arms and stare at him. He started to approach your bed and sat down next to you. What's gotten you upset now? He asked with a chuckle. It was you and all that nonsense, and then everything just felt so frustrating and stupid. Talking like that made you even more annoyed, so you puffed your cheeks a bit. Deku's POV. Gosh, she's adorable when she's upset, the way her cheeks puff up and her arms cross. Oh no, does she remember that I was jealous about her and Kaminari? She better not. I started to silently panic. Your POV. You snapped out of your childish state when you noticed Izuku looked worried. Are you all right? Yes, I'm fine. I'm just concerned about you. When we were talking earlier, you passed out again. We were talking? What were we discussing? I didn't realize this was my second time waking up. Izuku looked somewhat relieved by your response. Anyway, if you feel ready, I made breakfast. All Might is still at school and won't be home for a few hours, so he sent me here to take care of you, he said. You nodded and got out of bed, heading for the door with Izuku following behind. Soon, you were at the dining room table, enjoying some ramen while chatting with him. After finishing your meal, you both headed to the lounge to watch a movie. How about this new movie called The Conjuring? He suggested. I don't know, it sounds scary, you replied. There's no need to be scared, not if I'm here to protect you, Izuku said with a playful grin while flexing his muscles. You giggled at his behavior and agreed to watch the movie. Time skip. Who is dragging her down the hallway? You shouted in fear. It's the lady who cursed the property before she. You know, he replied. How can you be so calm about this? You covered your face with the blanket you were using and started shaking. You soon felt an arm wrap around you, pulling you closer. I'll be honest, I'm not calm, this is terrifying. You wouldn't believe how many times I've wanted to scream and run out of the room. You looked at him in surprise and noticed the fear in his eyes. You snuggled closer to Izuku, and whenever something scary happened, he held you tighter. The movie ended, and you were pretty sure you were still shaken, not literally of course, but that was intense. You were about to get up when Izuku's grip around your waist tightened. You looked up to ask if he wanted a drink, but his eyes were closed, and he was slightly drooling. You're so cute, you whispered under your breath. Deciding against getting a drink, you laid your head back down on his shoulder and drifted off to sleep. All Might's POV. Another day of being a good role model. I shouted as I exited the school. All Might, I need to speak with you. I turned around to see Aizawa standing near the school gate, waiting for me to follow him. Of course, I did. He can be intimidating when he's angry, so I didn't want to annoy him. We headed to his office and both sat down. I changed into my normal form and spun around in the chair a couple of times. So, Shoyuta, what do you want to talk about? First of all, stop spinning in the chair. Second, when do you plan on telling her? You can't keep it a secret forever. Aizawa leaned back in his chair and rubbed his forehead. I know I have to tell her at some point, but I'm afraid I don't know much yet. The only way to learn more is if she tells me herself, I replied. Aizawa looked at me and sighed. Let's just hope it turns out okay. I'd hate to see her upset with you. I smiled at Aizawa and stood up from the chair. It was nice of you to worry, but I do need to get back. Aizawa nodded and smiled back at me. I exited the room and made it halfway to the stairs before I remembered I forgot to ask Aizawa something, so I returned to his office. I opened the door and heard him quietly laughing to himself. I opened the door wider until I could see inside the room. What I saw was enough to make me burst into laughter. Aizawa was spinning on his chair. I let out a snort while trying to contain my laughter. That startled him, and he almost fell off the chair. He regained his composure and looked at me with a blank expression before asking what I wanted. Nothing. I'll let you get back to your spin fest. I laughed all the way home. When I pulled into the driveway, I heard shouting. I rushed to the front door. How can you be so calm about this? I leaned closer to the door and heard giggling. That's right, I need milk. I got back in the car and went to the store for some milk. Instead of just getting milk, I came out with packets of chips, donuts, strawberry milk, chocolate milk, and banana milk. Who needs regular milk? Regular milk is for the weak. I headed back home and opened the door, greeted by the sight of you and young Midoriya sleeping on the couch. My heart raced, and I felt a lump in my throat. So, I did what any not-so-normal uncle would do. I took photos and sent them to present Mike and Aizawa. Can you blame me? They looked adorable. After struggling not to squeal at the sight, I headed to the kitchen to put everything away. I then headed to my room and chatted with Mike and Aizawa about how cute they would be together. Obviously, Aizawa didn't really join in on the conversation too much. It was mainly Mike and I discussing how perfect they are for each other. Your POV. I woke up to find Izuku moving restlessly, his breathing becoming a bit erratic. I sat up to see his lips pursed and his eyebrows slightly raised. I flicked him on the head, causing him to jump and start babbling nonsense. I couldn't help but laugh a little. So, who are you dreaming about? I asked with a teasing smirk. What? No one. I wasn't dreaming about anyone. I can't believe you would think that I would dream about anyone other than Yo. Other than who? I brushed off what he was about to say and just laughed at his flustered reaction. Want a drink? I asked while getting off the couch. I'll come with you, he replied. That doesn't answer my question, but okay, I chuckled. We made it to the kitchen and realized it was stocked. I opened the fridge and saw it was mostly filled with milk, along with a few essentials for cooking spaghetti. Other than that, just milk. Is All Might drunk? Izuku asked. I looked at him and shrugged before closing the fridge. I sat on the counter because Izuku said he would make bacon and eggs. I had never been the best at making them, so Izuku offered. Suddenly, I heard a slight giggle coming from the hallway. I turned my head to see All Might peeking around the corner with his phone. I walked up to the corner and jumped around it while yelling. All Might threw his phone across the room and jumped back. Hello there, Wyatt. I wasn't expecting you to be down here, he said, clearing his throat. All Might smiled awkwardly as I stared at him in confusion. I soon realized what he was doing and smirked. And what do you suppose you were recording on that phone, mister? I asked with a sly grin. Nothing, YN. I was just checking if the air conditioner was working. I burst into laughter, and Izuku joined in. So you threw your phone across the room? I asked, still chuckling. Izuku POV. I have the best idea. Your POV. I was still laughing at All Might when something unexpected happened. Izuku came up and put his arm around my shoulder. What is he doing? Oh my god, I'm about to faint. So, All Might, from what I've gathered, you ship YN and me. Is that correct? Izuku said smugly. I turned back to All Might, only to see his cheeks puffed out and his face red. Was he holding back a squeal? Funnily enough, he started squealing seconds after I had thought that. Oh my gosh, you two are the cutest people in the entire world. Even Mike and Aizawa think that. Oh my gosh, you need to be together, he shouted excitedly. Izuku removed his arm and covered his mouth while laughing. Please put your arm back. Sorry to burst your bubble, All Might, but YN has absolutely no romantic interest in me, he said, stopping his laughter. I only see her as a friend, and she only sees me as a friend as well. You what? You could have at least asked me, you prick. Your mother would want you home by now, wouldn't she, Izuku? I tried to keep my cool, but I didn't know how much longer I could handle this. Actually, dinner should be ready soon. I'll see you at school tomorrow, he said while walking out the door. My eyes filled with tears as I barged past All Might and into my room. I slammed the door shut, jumped into bed, and started sobbing while clutching a pillow. What? I said. May I come in? All Might asked. Whatever. I wiped away my tears and tried to make it look like I was fine. Obviously, I didn't fool All Might. He walked in and extended his hand. Toshinori Yagi, I'm your uncle. It's a pleasure to meet you, he smiled. I took his hand with a smile. YNLN, nice to meet you, Uncle Toshi. He started to tear up when I called him Uncle Toshi and pulled me in for a hug. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you, he said, crying into my shoulder. Sorry for a short chapter, but I hope you enjoyed. I will try to make longer chapters. You pulled away from the hug and looked him in the eyes, starting to tear up again. What do you mean by that? I asked through sobs. He wiped his face and sat down on my bed, beginning to explain. When you were young, 7 years to be exact, your father started acting abnormally. He would lash out and hurt you and your brother. He would get angry over the slightest things and started laughing at nothing. This is when we discovered a new quirk that he hadn't told us about, demon possession. Basically, he had a different identity, an alter ego if you prefer. It was never heard of at that point in time, so no one knew how to stop him. But we did know one thing. It was spreadable. We learned that through your mother. He paused to make sure I was processing what he was saying. Your father bit her. At first, we thought it was completely harmless until 3 days later when she started to show the same effects. Her body wasn't strong enough to handle that much power. A tear escaped his eye. I tried to stop you from seeing her die, but I didn't make it in time. I'm so sorry. And now your brother is. He couldn't finish his sentence. I pulled him in for another hug, knowing what he was going to say. I remembered it perfectly. After our mother died, our father took my brother away from me. I had no idea where either of them were now, and frankly, I was terrified. The two of us pulled away from the hug, and I smiled at Uncle Toshi. He smiled back. On a lighter note, I bought a lot of milk. And I also got some ice cream. He stood up and asked if I wanted some. I nodded and started to walk out of the room with him. You were watching the movie Liar Liar, and it was hilarious. You almost choked on your ice cream a couple of times. When the movie ended, Toshi got up and took the dishes to the kitchen. I need to tell him. When he returned, you asked if you could share something important. You pulled back your hair to reveal a mark on your neck, a reminder of a past encounter. I know. Thank you for telling me, he said with a smile, handing you a bracelet. This will help. Germanium. You looked at him questioningly. I'm not sure why, but it makes the other you weaker, he replied. We don't want a repeat of what happened with your father, so please don't take it off. You nodded. The next day at school. You had finished the surprise test that Caterpillar had given the class, and you didn't do too badly. A note was pushed into your desk. It was from Bakugo. You okay, idiot? You giggled and wrote back, I'm fine. Since when do you care about me? B. Meet me on the roof after class. Absolutely not. You're going to push me off the roof. B. I wasn't, but that's a good idea. You're impossible. B. Watch your language. Coming from you. B. Just meet me. Fine. You were extremely nervous now, but genuinely curious. You made your way to the roof to see Bakugo standing there with something in his hand. You approached and tapped him on the shoulder. He turned around, looking ready for anything. Well, hello to you too, you said. He didn't say anything but handed you the item he was holding. It's not the best apology, he said, looking down. You opened the box to find a beautiful necklace, gold with a little fox at the end. How on earth did you remember? Look, I've never been good at expressing feelings, as you can tell. But I remember seeing you once in public, begging for the necklace. I was going to give it to you sooner, but I was too nervous. Before he could say another word, you pulled him in for a hug, thanking him repeatedly. He hugged back tightly. You pulled away and he took the necklace out of the box, asking you to turn around. He fastened it for you and smiled when you turned back. I don't expect you to ever forgive me for what I've done in the past, but I had to give it to you before it could have been too late. You smiled once more. Anyway, there's one thing I want to ask you, he paused. Do you think we can be friends again? The only way I'm allowing us to be friends again is if you apologize to Izuku as well. He nodded and headed off the roof. You suspected he was going to plan a massive apology. After he left, you saw Uraraka and Izuku talking, and your heart sank at the sight. It looked like she was giving Izuku a note. No way, that better not be a love letter. Izuku read the note and shook his head while handing it back. Uraraka looked upset. Time skipped to the next break. You were back on the roof with your lunch beside you. Izuku entered through the door and looked at you. He slowly came over and sat in front of you with his legs crossed. You seem upset with me, he said. Well, no kidding, you retorted. Is this about what I said? Leave, you said coldly. What? I said leave. I'm not in the mood. What am I saying? I never wanted to say that. What did I do? He raised his voice. You jumped up and pinned him against the ground, your eyes filled with intensity. I told you to leave. Izuku flings you off him and grabs you by the shirt. Who are you? He asks sternly. Why don't you let me introduce myself? You reply, twisting his wrist and turning him around. I'm YN 2.0, her alter ego. Why are you here? He raises his voice again. Do you know how much pain you caused YN? You broke her heart. The only reason I'm here is to make sure you never do that again. Like hell you are, he yells. He flips you over, now pinning you down. His legs restrain yours and he holds your arms above your head. Come back to me, YN. I need you, he says softly. And what does she get in return? Jealousy? Pain? Her pillow stained with tears every single night? I don't think so. Before you can react, he leans in closer, catching you off guard. Just as YN 2.0 is about to respond, the original YN takes over again. He pulls away and looks at you intensely. Why would you ever think I would kiss anyone but you? He smirks. Izuku, why you're kinda squishing me. He quickly jumps off and apologizes. You pull him in for another kiss and he gladly accepts. But when you pull away, you see that Izuku looks extremely uncomfortable. Are you alright? Did I do something wrong? You did nothing, YN. I'll see you in class. He rushes out, leaving you confused. The next day, the class is participating in a training exercise where heroes must disable a bomb while villains try to stop them. You are teamed up with Katsuki on the villain team. Stop it, Katsuki, you shout. Is that all you got, Midoriya? Katsuki yells back. Another blow is sent toward Izuku, but you stop it. Izuku is getting weaker, and you refuse to let this continue. Damn it, Katsuki, stop. You absorb his attack and retaliate with a light hit, not wanting to cause too much damage. Get out of my way, YN. Katsuki yells. Young Bakugo. All Might's voice booms over the speaker. Sheet. Izuku is about to get hit again, but you quickly teleport in front of him. The force of the attack catches you off guard, sending you flying backward into the wall. Izuku prepares to attack Katsuki now. Izuku, don't attack. You'll hurt yourself, you yell. Without thinking, you jump in front of Katsuki, taking the full force of Izuku's attack. YN. Izuku yells in alarm. Stupid nerd. Katsuki shouts, worry creeping into his voice. You glance behind you, trying to slow your fall, but what you see terrifies you. A massive sharp rock looms ahead, and you realize you're heading straight for it. Everything slows down as you see Izuku and Katsuki running toward you, their expressions filled with concern. This is it, I'm going to hit that rock. It was nice knowing you guys. It was nice sharing my first kiss with Izuku, the necklace Katsuki gave me as a gift. This is goodbye. You smile at the two boys, tears streaming down your face. The impact with the rock is jarring, and everything goes black. Izuku POV. YN. I yell, panic rising in my chest. She's going to hit the rock, she'll never survive that. She looked at me and smiled, tears streaming down my face as I rushed to her side. When I got there, she wasn't breathing. I screamed, and Katsuki placed a hand on my shoulder. Get off me, you monster. I yelled in pure rage toward the ash-blonde boy. He was crying, and then All Might appeared. Get out of here, young Bakugo. Now. I held YN in my arms, desperately searching for her pulse. Where's her pulse, All Might? It's not there. More tears poured down my face as he took YN from my grasp. The scream I let out was filled with pure agony and rage. All Might placed a hand on my shoulder as we exited the crumbled building, still holding YN in his arms. The class rushed up to me, asking if I was okay. Everyone, get the hell away from me. I snapped at my classmates, shocking them. Mr. Aizawa took YN from All Might and laid her gently on the ground. Everyone huddled around her, sobbing uncontrollably. Even Katsuki was in tears, while Aizawa fought to hold back his own. What have you done to my sister? Everyone looked up to see a young man standing next to YN, his hoodie obscuring his face. He bent down, lifted her up, and suddenly disappeared. "No!" the entire class shouted in unison. Akinari POV. Those heroes nearly harmed my sister. Of course, I'm upset. Akinari exclaimed. Please, just calm down. I don't want to feel that shock again. It was quite painful, Atsudo replied, trying to defuse the situation. Akinari scoffed. I'm going to see YN. He made his way to YN, who was lying on the table, secured in place. Activating his healing quirk, he tended to her wounds once more. You're lucky you're my sister. If you were anyone else, I wouldn't waste this much power, he whispered. After an hour, her smaller wounds were healing, but he was concerned about the deep cut on her back, which wasn't mending as well as the others. Want me to take over? Atsudo asked. Please, Akinari replied. As Atsudo approached the door, he placed a reassuring hand on Akinari's shoulder and smiled. She'll be okay, she's strong, you know. She's one of us after all, Akinari chuckled, resting his head on the bench. Are you still upset with me? Atsudo asked. I'm not angry, just disappointed, Akinari replied. Like I said before, I'm figuring it out. I hope you do, you've always been better at this stuff than I am, Atsudo said, eliciting a chuckle from Akinari before he teleported to his room. Who needs stairs anyway? They always seemed suspicious to him. He lay down on his bed and drifted off to sleep. Suddenly, a high-pitched scream jolted him awake. He rushed downstairs to find YN awake, looking terrified. Atsudo was huddled in the corner with wide eyes. Akinari laughed at his friend's reaction and hurried over to YN. He stumbled backward, hitting the wall. What happened? Did you bite her? He exclaimed. I don't know, maybe, Atsudo stammered. Akinari approached YN again, noticing her eyes returning to normal. She looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes. Akinari, she whispered. He quickly removed her restraints and pulled her into a hug. She embraced him tightly, and he felt her tears soaking his shoulder. YN, there's someone else here who missed you, he said, pulling away slightly. She lifted her head and turned to Atsudo, staring at him for a moment before lunging and knocking him to the ground. A dark mist began to swirl around her hand as she raised it to strike. Akinari teleported and caught her hand just before it could make contact. He pulled her away from Atsudo, forcing her to look him in the eye. Listen, YN, I know you're there. Please don't let it take control, he urged, placing his hands on her shoulders. I know he's not the best, but I figured out a way to bring her back. YN still struggled for control, trying to break free from his grasp. I can bring Mom back. Are you listening? I can bring her back, he said, his voice trembling. As he spoke, her eyes began to return to normal. She pulled him into another hug. It's true, YN. He knows how to bring her back, and I am truly sorry, Atsudo said, standing up and brushing off his shirt. I know you may never forgive me, and I understand if you don't. But all I ask is that you trust me just for a little while. Once your mother is alive again, you can go back to hating me. His voice broke as he spoke, tears streaming down his face. Your POV. You looked at Atsudo, seeing the sorrow etched on his face. It was clear he was genuinely remorseful. Your arms slipped from Akinari's embrace as you walked over to Atsudo, who appeared scared and ashamed. You stopped right in front of him and told him to look at you. The two of you made eye contact, and you began to speak. You are the scum of the earth, and with most fibers of my being, I truly despise you. You paused. But you're still my father. You took his hand. What kind of daughter would I be if I didn't love my father? Remember when I came home that day after protecting Izuku? He nodded. I was so sad and scared, but you made me feel so much better. You started to tear up. I took you out for ice cream and won you a pocket-sized teddy, he smiled. Akinari picked up Izuku, and we all went to an arcade. Both of you began to tear up. Akinari approached. I'm sorry for taking you away from Izuku and your class, but you were in such terrible condition. I had to help, he said. It's fine. I'm just concerned about what will happen when I go back, you giggled. I've already figured that out. Just pretend you don't remember anything, he said. Not a bad idea, big bro, you smiled, placing your hand on your hip. Am I forgiven? Atsuto asked. You're not completely forgiven, but yes, you replied. You pulled Atsuto and Akinari into a hug, and they hugged you back. You all stayed like that for a few minutes before Dad had to go do something. Well, you're all healed except for a couple of bruises and that big cut on your back. But other than that, you're good to go, he said, taking hold of your arm. Let's get you back to Izuku. You two would make a cute couple. You know, he swore for the first time. He smiled. My sweet little innocent bean swore, you gasped. He called Bokugu a monster. You gasped again and pretended to faint. Akinari caught you and tried to get you to stop being silly. You remained limp in his arms. Fine then, you asked for it, he said, dropping you to the floor. My back, you exclaimed. Oh no. I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. He leaned down to help you and you grabbed his arm, flipping him onto his back. You sneaky little rascal, he laughed. You both finished your playful tussle, and he took you to Izuku's house, or rather, down the street from it. He said goodbye and gave you an address and a phone number. If you need anything, just give me a call. You hugged and said your goodbyes before heading to Izuku's home. You arrived and knocked on his door. Uncle Toshi answered and was stunned to see you standing there. Holy cow, Toshi whispered. Hi, you said nervously. Toshi brought you in for a hug and held you for a few minutes. You hugged back tightly. When you pulled away, you looked at the ground, unsure of what to say. You've been gone for 3 weeks. Everyone has been so worried. How on earth did you survive? He asked. I don't really remember anything. I know I hit a rock when I tried to stop Izuku's attack, but other than that, I don't remember anything, you replied, looking up. Come in, it's freezing out here. You stepped inside to find Izuku asleep on the couch. You smiled and made your way over to him, taking a blanket from the other side of the couch and placing it over him. He snored and rolled over, making you giggle. Time to head off to bed, YN, it's getting late, Toshi said. You nodded and walked to the car with him. Once home, you jumped straight into bed. The next day at school, you heard someone call out, Wait up, YN. You turned around to see Izuku running toward you. You stopped and waited for him to catch up. I need to talk to you quickly, he said. You turned your body toward him, waiting for him to continue. I don't think it's a good idea to be in a relationship with you. You're getting in the way of my training. Besides, I think I'm starting to like you, Raraka. You gritted your teeth. I'm getting in the way of training? Yeah, no, it's fine. I see how it is. You just decided to mess with my feelings, and now I feel like a piece of trash. You know what? Forget you. Go have fun with you, Raraka. I almost died trying to protect you from Bokugu, and this is the greeting I get? I thought we were friends, Izuku. Well, if you're going to be such a drama queen about it, maybe you should have just stayed away. All you do is complicate everything, he shot back. You stared at him, tears threatening to spill. Before you could respond, you noticed Toshi nearby, listening to your conversation. He approached and gave Izuku a stern look. Izuku, go to class now, Toshi commanded. Oh. All Might, what's going on? Denki asked, noticing your distressed expression. He looked at your tear-stained face and became immediately worried. What happened? Please take care of young YN, I need to talk to someone, Toshi said. Denki nodded and walked closer to you. Your head was tilted toward the ground, and a few tears escaped, landing on the concrete. Follow me, he said. You looked up and nodded. The two of you sat on the roof after getting permission from Nizu to skip classes. Today's classes weren't very important anyway. Both of your legs dangled over the edge of the building as you and Denki sat in comfortable silence. Denki stood up and started playing music. It was your favorite song. You looked up and giggled at him. He extends his hand and you take it. The two of you danced around, unaware that Toshi was standing at the entrance to the roof, watching you both move to Meghan Trainor's song. As the music ended, Toshi chuckled. You two are quite the pair, he said. Young Kaminari, has YN told you why she was upset this morning? Denki nodded. I spoke with Izuku and called his mother. She's not particularly pleased with him right now, and neither am I. Your mood instantly darkened, and you fell silent. Sorry for bringing down the vibe, Toshi said, starting another song. All three of you danced like carefree kids until school ended. Before the weekend arrived, Denki insisted on giving you his number. Hesitant at first, you eventually agreed. Now you sat in your room, staring at your phone. You really wanted to text Izuku, but something held you back. Forget it, you thought, grabbing your phone and starting to type. Hey Izuku. What do you want? I just wanted to know why you acted so differently yesterday. I'm calling you. Your heart raced as you clicked the green button. Listen, YN, I'm not going to talk to you anymore, nor am I going to come near you. Got it? Tears welled in your eyes. What did I do? You managed to choke out. Just leave me alone, all right? His voice cracked, hinting at his own pain. Why would he be upset? He never cared about me, he just played with my feelings, you thought, feeling lost as everything seemed to slow down. Your phone buzzed, breaking your trance. It was Denki. Hey, Denki, you said. Hey, why and have you been crying? Maybe, you chuckled softly. He hung up, leaving your mind blank. I guess he doesn't care either. By this point, all your tears had dried, so you put your phone down and buried your head under the sheets. You weren't sure how much time had passed, but it felt like hours. Suddenly, your door opened without a sound. Curious, you peeked out from under the covers. Just then, you heard your name being called, followed by a heavy weight landing on you. The blankets were pulled down, revealing a familiar Pikachu. Denki. You quickly hid your face back under the blankets, hearing him chuckle. Nice to see you too, he said. Come on, get up and put on some shoes. He rolled off you and fell to the floor. You looked down to see if he was all right. Jump out for a second, I need to change. He grinned. You know you could change now. Your face flushed and you threw a pillow at him. Ow, he laughed. Okay, I get it. As he headed toward the door, he turned back and struck a pose, wiggling his eyebrows. You went into panic mode, making a strange noise before throwing another pillow his way. He chuckled again before finally leaving the room. You changed into an All Might hoodie, black leggings, and pink sneakers, your favorite outfit, even if you didn't own the hoodie yet. Exiting your room, you found Toshi and Denki chatting. Toshi glanced at your hoodie and nearly spat out his drink, while Denki stared at you, his face turning red. Alright, let's go, you said, feeling a mix of embarrassment and excitement. Denki, where are you taking me? Nowhere special really. I thought you could use some cheering up, he replied. Right now, you were blindfolded, completely unaware of what was happening. Almost there, watch your step. He helped you up a step. And we're here. He removed the BLNDFLD, revealing a park filled with cherry blossom trees. Not far from where you stood, a picnic blanket lay adorned with rose petals. I'm confused. You did this for me? Before Denki could respond, a familiar voice echoed from across the park. Here. All Might sprinted across the grass, skidding to a stop next to the blanket, his clothes covered in grass and dirt. I'm not late, am I? He asked, looking a bit disheveled. You're just on time, All Might, Denki smiled. Tears filled your eyes as you walked toward the blanket. A basket sat there, filled with rainbow cupcakes and an assortment of sweets and fruits. Next to the basket was a note, which you picked up and began to read. Dear YN, we know you haven't had the best few days, so young Kaminari and I decided to make this day special. We have everything planned, but of course, the activities will be a surprise, except for one, which we will do right now. You looked at All Might, confused. Denki tapped you on the shoulder. Tag! A smile spread across your face, and joy filled your heart as you immediately chased after Denki. All Might ducked behind a tree, hoping to avoid detection. Hey, Pikachu, let's team up on All Might. He nodded, grinning. You both charged at All Might. This isn't fair, young ones. I don't even think this is allowed, he exclaimed, trying to escape. Eventually, he tripped and landed face first on the ground. You helped him up while Denki laughed in the background. You and Toshi joined Denki, who had treated himself to a lollipop. You take a seat, and Toshi does the same. This day isn't even half over, and it's already been amazing, you say, feeling a tear well up. Thank you so much, everyone. Toshi and Denki smile while pulling you in for a hug. You're going to love the other activities we have planned, young Wyan, Toshi assures you. I'm sure I will, you reply with a smile. A little while later, you shout, a Ferris wheel. I haven't been on one of these since I was a kid. Yep, and after this, we're going to see a movie, Denki adds. This is the best day ever. You can't express how happy you are that Toshi and Denki went through so much trouble to make this day perfect. You even forget why you were sad in the first place. As you line up for the Ferris wheel, you catch a glimpse of Deku and Uraraka holding hands. You didn't even realize Denki was talking to you until he snapped his fingers in front of your face. You're a bit out of it, Wyan. What are you staring at? Denki asks, looking in the direction you're focused on and spotting Deku. Just ignore them. Today is going to keep getting better. Trust me, he whispers, pulling you in for another hug. You hug him back, but a feeling of unease lingers about the situation with Deku. You brush it off as it's your turn to hop on the Ferris wheel, taking one last glance at Deku, who looks incredibly sad. You, Denki, and Toshi are now sitting in a cart, waiting for the Ferris wheel to start. It takes a little while because a commotion broke out between some people, but it was entertaining to watch. Two kids were arguing over a girl. One was boastful and all talk, while the other was genuinely nice and had brought the girl to the festival. Thankfully, the nice one won, and everything returned to normal. Honestly, that little brat deserved to be put in his place, Toshi whispers under his breath. You and Denki exchange wide-eyed glances. What? Just because I'm a hero doesn't mean I can tolerate stuck-up kids, Toshi defends. You giggle and hug him, and Denki joins in. As the Ferris wheel starts moving, you tumble backward, and Denki ends up falling on top of you. Well, isn't this cliché? Denki jokes. Yes, it is. You can jump off now, you reply. Nah, I'm good. You're comfy, he says, wrapping his arms around you in a friendly embrace. You pat his back affectionately, then playfully punch him lightly, causing him to release you with a wheeze. You hoist yourself up using the seat and gently push Denki down, sitting on his back. Toshi bursts out laughing and Denki joins in. After a while, you reach the top of the Ferris wheel, and the view is breathtaking. This is beautiful, you exclaim excitedly. I know, right? Like, oh my gosh. Denki squeals, clapping his hands. You turn to see Toshi taking a photo. This is a moment I have to treasure forever, he smiles, looking at his phone. You smile back at Denki, and he returns the gesture. Suddenly, the Ferris wheel jolts, sending you all leaning dangerously over the edge of the cart. Holy cow! Denki screams. Stop the wheel! You hear people shout from below. It takes a moment for the reality of the situation to sink in, and when it does, fear grips you. Grab onto something, anything. Just hold on. You tell yourself repeatedly until you finally grasp a metal bar. You look up to see Denki and Toshi panicking. Your grip starts to slip, and you can feel your heart racing. This isn't a movie. If I fall, I'm going to be so upset. But hopefully not dead, you think, holding on with just 3 fingers. Your heart pounds as you realize you're losing your grip, and before you know it, you're falling. Everything goes black as tears escape your eyes. Deku's POV. I look up to see YN hanging onto a metal pole, glancing down in fear. I start to run toward her, but I'm stopped. Uraraka is holding my wrist tightly. Let go of me, I shout, trying to break free, but another hand holds me back. We made a deal, Deku, Kaken growls. I didn't agree to any deal. What is wrong with you two? I yell. Kaken exchanges a look with Uraraka, and they both smile at me. The last thing I see is Kaken's fist coming toward my face. Your eyes slowly open, and you try to focus on your surroundings. Your vision is blurry, making it difficult to see. All you could make out clearly was a lot of white. You tried to move your arm to rub your eyes, but as soon as you did, a shooting pain shot through your arm. You hissed at the sudden discomfort. By now, your eyes had almost fully adjusted, and you could see where you were, in a hospital. You heard mumbling coming from the other side of the door. A couple of seconds later, Denki and Toshi entered the room. When they turned around and saw you were awake, Toshi dropped his coffee cup and immediately ran to give you a hug, with Denki following closely behind. They both kept mumbling things like, "Thank goodness," and "Wow, you're okay." Once the hugging session was over, you asked how long you had been out. 3 days, both of them replied. You chuckled softly. I swear, my life is becoming a fan fiction. What do you mean by that, YN? Denki asked. You know how most fanfictions start with everything going great, then something bad happens to the main character, and their love life gets complicated. You cut yourself off and nervously chuckled. I mean, not that I would know anything about that. It's not like I read fanfiction or anything. Denki laughed, while Toshi looked really confused. What's fanfiction? He asked. You and Denki exchanged amused glances and started laughing. Oh, that reminds me, YN, you have some other visitors coming in soon. They want to speak to you alone, so we'll be heading off now. Denki smiled and started heading for the door. I'll see you at school tomorrow. Toshi followed behind after giving you another hug and saying his goodbyes. You were lying down on the hospital bed, waiting for your other visitors. Just as you were about to doze off, the door opened suddenly, jolting you awake. It was Uraraka. Hey, Uraraka, how are you? You asked. She didn't reply. Instead, she walked slowly over to you and playfully punched you in the shoulder. You were stunned and completely surprised. What was that for? You asked, a bit annoyed. I think we both know what that was for, she said with a smirk. Then she jumped onto your bed and started playfully throwing punches in your direction. You squealed and quickly rolled off the bed to try and escape. You would have stood up and run if it weren't for your broken leg. Just then, Bakugo entered the room, timing his arrival perfectly to stop Uraraka from throwing another punch. Everything was calm again. You were back on your bed, resting nicely. Uraraka had been escorted out of the hospital room by a security guard. Bakugo looked incredibly distressed, and the atmosphere in the room felt heavy. Thank you, you said quietly, your throat sore from Uraraka's earlier antics. Don't thank me, Bakugo replied, his expression serious. But you basically saved me. Of course, I need to thank you. Bakugo looked up and your eyes locked. His gaze was intense, and you could see a hint of worry in his eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't know she would go that far. She said she would call the deal off if it didn't work out, he said, trailing off as he struggled to find the right words. Alright, calm down. Take deep breaths and start from the beginning, you encouraged, scooting closer to him. He took a deep breath and began to explain. Right before I tell you, promise not to get really mad. I don't want to die. You were taken aback for a moment. Of course, I won't be super mad. Bakugo took another deep breath. Okay, I made a deal with Uraraka. She likes Deku, and I like you. She said she would confess to Deku and see what he says. If he said no, the deal would be off. He started shaking. Deku refused, and she wasn't expecting it, so she kinda went crazy. And now she's trying to take you out of the picture. Bakugo's voice trembled as he spoke. You took your hand off Bakugo's shoulder and took a moment to process the information. Let me get this straight. You thought that if Uraraka got Deku, then you could get me? And now that didn't work out, she's trying to hurt me? Bakugo nodded, looking down. Where is Izuku? You asked, concern rising in your voice. Bakugo pointed to the wall opposite you. What did she do to him? You asked sternly. Tears fell as he struggled to explain. I didn't want to hurt him, but she did. Because he loves you and he couldn't get any more words out. You pulled him into a comforting hug, resting your head against his shoulder. He hugged you back tightly, trembling. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice breaking. Good people make mistakes too. It doesn't make you a bad person, you reassured him. You pulled away and suggested he should get home. Before you go, you leaned in and kissed him on the cheek. He froze for a moment, then smiled before heading out the door without saying another word. You smiled and decided to check the room next to yours. You weren't sure if you were allowed to get up and walk around, but you didn't care. You opened the door that led to Izuku's room and walked over to the bed, finding him asleep. You grabbed a seat and placed it beside his bed. He had an 4 in his arm, and a bruise surrounded his right eye. You took his hand and started tearing up. I'm sorry I didn't realize what was happening sooner. You're only in here because of me. You laid your head on the bed and silently cried. After a few minutes, you felt his hand squeeze yours. You looked up to see Izuku sleepily staring at you. Your eyes lit up, and more tears rushed down your cheeks as Izuku smiled at you. A nurse entered the room and saw the two of you. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you two were together. If I had known, I would have put you in the same room. Your face turned bright red, and Izuku's did too. We're not dating, Izuku said quickly. You looked at him and smiled. Izuku Midoriya, will you go out with me? His face scrunched up in surprise. Wow, are you okay? You look a bit rough, you remark. Yeah, I just felt like my heart was going to burst for a moment. You giggle, and the nurse in the corner seems to be overwhelmed. Is that a yes? You ask. Of course it's a yes, he replies, while the nurse appears to be on the verge of hyperventilating. It's fine, I don't need to breathe anyway, she says. Both you and Izuku laugh and start chatting about random topics, mostly the upcoming sports festival. The sports festival is tomorrow, and you're a bundle of nerves. It's been a week since you and Izuku were discharged from the hospital, and you've been training intensely, with Izuku occasionally joining you. Hey, how are you? Come over, I need to show you something. I'll be right there. You hang up and head towards Akinari's place. Knock knock. You call out. Atsudo answers the door. Hey Dad. Akinari said he has something to show me? He nods and leads you to a dimly lit room filled with various types of equipment. Suddenly, Akinari appears and gives you an enthusiastic hug. I've had a major breakthrough. YN. I can take your dark side and transform her into another being, sort of. He beams. You gasp, really? What do you mean, sort of? You know the Welcome to Hell animation, right? You nod in response. Well, suck the demon. Yes, the second version of you will be like that, but instead of being unseen, everyone will be able to see her, though she won't have a physical form. You ponder this for a moment. So I wouldn't have to control her anymore? You ask. Basically, she can still communicate with you and suggest things, so it's like having a friendly spirit around all the time. That actually sounds really cool, you smile. How do we make this happen? Akinari's smile widens. He leads you to a machine and instructs you to sit in a chair. He tinkers with the controls, and soon enough, there's another version of you ghost form. Wait, I'm out? I'm free, the second you exclaims, attempting to float away, but something holds her back. Yes, you can't leave, whine, you're bound to her forever, Akinari smirks. Well, that's just great. I wanted to go throw you Raraka off a cliff, she retorts. We are not doing anything like that, you shout at her. We should give the new YN a name. Atsudo suggests. Great idea, you smile. Now we have to get creative. You gasp, I have a fantastic name idea. Let's call her Deku. What? Deku exclaims. That's the worst name ever. Well, little Miss Deku, do you have a better name in mind? She falls silent. That's what I thought. Oh, that reminds me. The sports festival. Tomorrow is the day, and I'm late for my training with Denki. I'll come back after. You give Akinari and Atsudo a quick hug and dash out the door to meet Denki. The meeting spot is a beautiful open area, quite a distance from the houses. Can you stop narrating everything you're doing? We're going to the beach, not trying to sell a house. Deku rolls her eyes. Listen, I'm trying to make this as entertaining as possible, and I can't do that with your constant chatter, you reply, rolling your eyes back at her. After a few minutes of running, you realize you're surprisingly not out of breath. You're now close to the beach, and Denki comes into view. I see a little silhouette of Denki, you chuckle. Hey, Denki. You wave your hand frantically in the air, and he waves back with a smile. Hey, Denki. I have something a little different for today. You're going to fight me. His eyes widen in surprise. What? You heard me, you say, placing your hands on your hips. Fight me. Well, if you say so, Denki replies, his cute demeanor shifting to something more serious, and you start to second-guess your decision. Before he can make the first move, you splash him in the face with water. He gasps and tries to shoot some electricity your way, but you quickly block it with a wall of rocks. Whoa, wait. Why stop? Denki exclaims, looking behind you with alarm. Alright, Deku is here. You turn around, but she's not there. Something feels off about your shadow. It's not mimicking your movements. Turning back, you see Denki looking a bit pale. Oh, I forgot to mention, you say, stomping on your shadow. Deku appears next to you. What was that for? She grumbles. Denki, this is Deku. She's the demon that was living inside me. Something's happened and now there are two of us. You smile as if nothing is wrong. There are two YNS? Denki exclaims, eyes wide. You nod. Best day ever, he shouts, rushing over to Deku to see if he can make contact. Is he going to be like this the whole time? She asks. Give him a few moments, you reply. So you can float and stuff? How does that work? Are you basically like a spirit that can be touched? Can you hold things without them falling through you like a ghost? Denki continues to ramble, asking questions one after another. You start to feel a bit irritated and toss a small rock at him. After some time, you mumble, Bleer, I'm exhausted. Same. Hey, you've gotten a lot stronger, Denki comments. Thanks. It's getting late. We need to rest up for tomorrow. Yeah, you're right. Bye, YN, and see you, Deku. Just like that, Denki is off, leaving you standing with Deku. Potential boyfriend? Deku teases, and you punch her lightly in the arm. So, how can you float but I can't? I'm not really sure, but I can carry you home. You seem tired, Deku suggests. You smile and lean against her. You know, you're not as bad as I thought you'd be. You yawn. How dare you? Deku chuckles. My goal is to keep you happy, and with that girl Uraraka, I'm having a hard time not throwing her into a pit of spikes. You're also kind of at the noted. You giggle, feeling your eyes grow heavy as you drift off in Deku's arms. You wake up to the sight of Deku's hand coming straight for your face. Just before it could make contact, you grab her wrist. Your reflexes are a lot quicker. That's good, Deku smiles. Get up, I made breakfast. You rub your eyes and look at the clock. What? Why on earth did you wake me up at 3 a.m.? Don't you remember? The sports festival is today, and you've got to prepare. Oh, and I figured something out. You look at Deku, curious. I can use powers as well, and I can give you my strength. What do you mean by that? You ask, following her to the kitchen, where she sets a plate of pancakes in front of you. I can transfer my strengths to you, so I can make you stronger than you already are. She takes a bite of her pancakes. So basically, you're saying it would be like two of me merged into one? That's exactly what I'm saying, she replies. Why couldn't you do that when we were merged? Because I didn't have a separate body from you, so I shared your strengths. You nod and finish your pancakes. And I do have to tell you something, don't use all of your quirks at once. You look up at her, confused. Why not? Just don't, especially when I give you my powers. You slowly nod and take the plates into the kitchen. After that, you head out to train a bit and get used to having more strength than usual. You go to the beach and do a few warm-ups. This is so cool. It's like I could run forever. Yeah. Don't use too much stamina, you need it, Deku chuckles. Wait, now that I'm a lot stronger, does that mean I can create larger attacks? Yes, it does, Deku replies. You gasp and face the ocean. You don't want to cause any damage, so you put up your hand and focus on the biggest fire attack you can make. Your hand starts to grow warmer, and soon a dim orange light surrounds it. Fire bursts from your palm and shoots about 200 feet before disappearing into thin air. That was amazing, you exclaim, giggling like a child. You try the same with your ice powers and freeze more of the ocean than you ever imagined. That's incredible. I can't see any part of the ocean that's not frozen. With the strength I could freeze all the water in the world. Please don't, Deku says. That's awesome. You jump and turn around, and there stands Izuku, looking in awe. Izuku, you squeal, running over for a hug. He hugs you back tightly. What are you doing here? You ask, pulling away from the hug and smiling at him. I saw a fire from this direction and thought it might have been a villain, so I came to check it out. I wasn't expecting to see you here. You start jumping up and down while giggling. I know. I've gotten so much more powerful. I shot my fire 200 feet. It's so cool. Izuku listens as you ramble on about how excited and nervous you are for the sports festival. He nods occasionally, but all he can think about is how beautiful you are, the way your eyes light up when you're excited, how your hair falls when you let it down, and the way you smile whenever you see him. Everything about you is perfect. He remembers how you once said you didn't like yourself much, and he can't understand how someone so wonderful could feel that way. His thoughts are interrupted when you splash him with water. He stands there in shock as you giggle at him. Izuku laughs and runs at you. You easily dodge and start running the other way, but he catches up to you quickly. Before he came, Deku had merged with you to regain some energy before the festival, so now you've returned to your normal strength. Izuku grabs your wrist and pulls you in. You're going to do great today. He leans in and gently presses his lips to yours. You smile against the kiss and wrap your arms around his neck, while he places his hands on your hips, pulling you closer. Meanwhile, someone watches the two of you embrace, and anger boils inside them. I'm going to make her pay. Who are you fighting next, Izuku? He doesn't look up, continuing to mumble about something. Hey, pay attention, you say, making a tiny rock in the palm of your hand and tossing it at him. He jolts when the rock makes contact and stares at you wide-eyed. Who are you fighting next? Oh, well, I'm fighting Shinso. I don't know what his quirk is, but it has something to do with talking. You run your fingers through your hair and sigh. He's staring at you, Deku says in your mind. You look up and give Izuku a small smile. A bell rings, signaling the next battle is about to start. That's me. Izuku stands up and starts heading for the door. Before he can go any further, you grab him by the wrist and pull him in for a kiss. You're going to do great out there. Izuku's cheeks turn red, and he gives you a big smile. You have to fight Achiko after, right? Yeah. Don't remind me. Your expression faltered until Izuku gently tucked a strand of hair behind your ear, cupping your cheek and placing a soft kiss on your forehead. I'm rooting for you. With that, he left the room. You longed to feel his touch again but didn't want to disturb him before the match. Instead, you sat down and began strategizing ways to win. Deku materialized beside you and spoke. You know she's not as strong as you, right? Yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that she might have some solid strategies. Deku scoffed and phased through the middle of the table, continuing to phase through various objects for a few moments before you decided to head out and watch Izuku. You motioned for Deku to follow, and she complied as you made your way down the corridor, finding a seat between Denki and Bakugo. Hey YN, are you excited to see Izuku win? Denki asked. Shut up, dunce face. That nerd won't even get close to winning. You gasped and playfully slapped Bakugo's arm, giving him a fierce glare. Tisich, fine. There's a slight chance he might win. That's better. Start. Present Mike shouted. You smiled at Bakugo and focused on the battle as it began. It seemed like Shinso and Izuku were exchanging words until Izuku suddenly moved forward, picking up speed, then abruptly stopped, frozen in place. What is he doing? You whispered in a panic. Midoriya. The match just started, and he's standing there. He looks completely blank. Izuku remained still for a few seconds before slowly turning around and heading toward the edge of the ring. That's his quirk. Brainwashing. How did I not notice it before? You murmured, debating whether Izuku could stop in time. His foot was just about to touch the white line when a massive gust of wind erupted around him. Your eyes widened, and you stood up quickly. He stopped just before the line. Your mouth fell open in awe. Incredible! You continued to watch, captivated. Although you couldn't see clearly, Shinso's movements suggested he was surprised as well. Who wouldn't be? Izuku and Shinso stood immobile for a moment. You heard the faint sound of Shinso yelling, likely questioning what Izuku had done to break the trance. Then, Izuku raced toward Shinso, and you could hear faint shouts coming from the purple-haired boy. Once Izuku reached him, he grabbed Shinso's shoulder, but Shinso retaliated with a punch to Izuku's gut, forcing his hand away. He began to push Izuku closer to the white line when something incredible happened. Izuku seized Shinso by the wrist and tossed him over his shoulder and out of bounds. You jumped up, cheering loudly. That was amazing. When you saw Izuku, you rushed in for a big hug. Izuku, you were incredible. That was so cool. Izuku laughed while thanking you. Now it's your turn to be amazing. He kissed your forehead once more. Go on, show her what you've got. You giggled and headed into the room before your match began. You found yourself in the center of the ring, face to face with the girl who had caused so much trouble. Deku had given you her powers, and you felt confident you couldn't lose. Achiko took a running start, charging straight at you with pure hatred in her eyes. You tore chunks from the ground, trying to block her advance. While you excelled at long-range attacks, close combat wasn't your strength, so keeping her at a distance was crucial. However, she managed to dodge most of your attacks and landed a few punches here and there. An idea sparked in your mind, and you gave Achiko a mischievous smile. Your back ignited with flames, slowly taking the shape of wings. This better work, you muttered. You leaped into the air, imagining the fire functioning as actual wings. To your delight, it worked, and you soared through the sky. You're using a lot of energy with that, Deku warned. You didn't respond. Instead, you dropped to the ground and made the wings disappear. Now that was a sight to behold. YN created wings of fire. What an intimidating angel! Mike exclaimed with enthusiasm. The crowd erupted in cheers, and you smiled to yourself. However, as you collapsed to one knee, a sharp pain shot through your leg. Ugh, I landed awkwardly. Achiko seized the opportunity to make the ground beneath you float. I can't use the wings again, or I'll drain all my strength. Panic set in. What now? Before you realized it, you began creating an ice path leading toward the ground. You stood up and slid down it safely. Now on the ground, you decided to take a risk and attack at close range. You used wind to propel yourself toward Achiko. You were so close to winning, but then everything slowed down. Achiko grinned wickedly and reached into her pocket. Your eyes widened in fear as she pulled out a sharp silver object. You tried to dodge, but it was too late. Achiko lunged at you, and you felt a sharp pain as she struck. She pushed you over the line, and before you could react, she pinned you down, laughing maniacally as she continued her assault. Just then, Midnight intervened, pulling Achiko away and releasing a violet mist to put her to sleep. Aizawa was the first to reach you, lifting you in his arms and rushing you to the nurse's office. Not long after, you lost consciousness. I'm sorry, but it's not looking good. The stab wound was dangerously close to the heart. I'm not sure if she'll make it. You opened your eyes slightly to see Bakugo yelling at a doctor, and your gaze drifted to a tearful Izuku staring out the window. She has to make it. What are her chances of survival? Tashinori rushed to your side, cupping your cheek. And you're awake. Thank goodness. Bakugo stopped yelling and turned to you, and Izuku did the same. Oh my god. You had me so worried. Izuku began to sob, gripping your hand tightly. Toshi, Izuku, and Bakugo were expressing their deep concern for you, their voices filled with affection. Soon after, Denki joined the conversation, and the atmosphere lightened as everyone shared laughter and dreams of becoming pro-heroes. However, you felt a strange sensation. Occasionally, your heart would flutter, and a wave of numbness would wash over you. You tried to brush it off and continued to engage in the lively discussion. But before long, your vision began to blur, and your ability to move faded. Your grip on Izuku's hand loosened. Izuku noticed your change and immediately alerted the others. You're okay, right? Yeah, I'm fine, you managed to reply, though your voice wavered. Izuku's heart raced as he watched your hand slip from his grasp, and the monitor began to emit a flat tone. Everything around him turned hazy, he could barely hear or feel anything. All he could see were doctors rushing in, their faces a blur as they worked to bring you back. But it didn't work. Chapter end. So, greetings, everyone. I've decided to rewrite this story to make it better because, as it stands, I feel it needs improvement. I'm not sure how long it will take, but I plan on rewriting everything and then releasing all the chapters at once. I hope to make it longer and, once again, better than what I've written before. And to my friend who still reads the story, you know who you are, thank you for saying it's good, it means a lot to me. Anyway, I'll see you all later with the new and improved Deku X reader. Bye for now. Chapter end. Hey everyone. This will be my final post for a while, if not forever. I'm growing up now, and I think it's best to leave this behind. I've loved my experience here and everyone I've had the pleasure of talking to. I hope my story continues to entertain you and all the newcomers who discover it. Thank you for all the feedback and funny comments. They mean a lot to me. I love you all and wish you the best. See you. Chapter end.